Hello and welcome back to Havoc, and when we left off we had decided that it might be a good idea for me to try and expand outward rather than going up and down along a very thin stretch of territory, and so that's what I've attempted to do. Unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, but I kind of allowed this situation to happen, mostly because I wanted to see what kind of situation my faction could handle. Because as it stands right now, I think generally, if we are in a situation where we are 1 versus 1 against another faction of some kind, doesn't really matter how strong or how weak they are at this point, but generally, I think any one-on-one situation is probably going to end in a victory for us. Whether that means we lose a couple of battles initially, we are more than likely always going to overcome that. So that's the reason why I've taken these two towns off screen. So you can see here that I've taken Odok, and I've also taken Kuivai, or whatever it's called. Anyway, so here's the thing, we're at war against these two factions, so these, and now here's the thing, this is what was kind of interesting to me, and why, as I said, I kind of allowed this to happen, because this kind of forces my faction into a situation where we're going to need to make decisions that are pretty critical most of the time, unless we can finish one of these factions off reasonably fast. Now, bear in mind that the one faction that I'm quite afraid of, or in all intents and purposes, is this guy right here, Mr. Turiodos. Turiodos actually has a really good army as well. You take a look at his composition here. He has elite Manavliatons, elite Cataphract units, and various other very high-tier people in his army. Of course, he does have a wide variety of low-tier units as well, but for the most part, he is a very scary individual. And I'm not entirely sure if we're going to be able to defeat him with just me, but that's exactly what we are going to try to do. So obviously we've declared war against those people, and oh yeah, I did not declare war against the Sturgian faction in the north. That was not my idea. I thought to myself, I'm going to attack these guys because they have a town that is Khuzate in culture, and it makes sense for us to reclaim those things because it's our culture, so we gain a loyalty bonus and all that wonderful stuff. So, you know, that's just generally what I was going for there. But my vassals, before I could declare war against these guys, they said, these fellows are, you know, we're not at war against anyone, let's declare war against these guys. And that's exactly what they try to do. So anyway, we're going to go in here against Mr. Turiodos. This might very well end in some pretty significant casualties for us. Ooh, I like the battlefield though. Oh yes, I like the battlefield. What's really cool as well, by the way, with all of these battlefield enhancements that the developers have made, is that you can actually see various fiefs in the distance. You see that right over there? What is that? Is that a town or is that a castle? Looks like a town to me, but I obviously can't tell because I can't move the camera any further. I can zoom up here though. I don't know. It kind of looks like a bit like a castle, but I think it's a town because it's much larger in my opinion. So anyway. Point is, let's do this. 165 horse archers that I have available here. And amusingly enough, we're actually using fire arrows. That's pretty cool because obviously it's not actually nighttime. It's just about to get to nighttime, or it's just exiting nighttime. So we have a pretty light battlefield on our hands. And we also have to wade through the water here to be able to get to our opponents. So this is actually a bit of a well, shall we say, troublesome situation to be in, especially for a force of horse archers, because these guys, they only do very well when they have maximum mobility. But obviously the river being here is going to drastically reduce that mobility and give us a really, well, shall we say, not a difficult penalty, but an interesting penalty, to say the least. That means we're going to have to deal with some other disadvantage, which I think is quite nice. Now, if only I could just eliminate a bunch of these archers, that would be nice. Seems like my forces are taking an absolute... Are we taking a battering right now? I'm actually not entirely sure. I don't think so. Just gonna ride along the battle lines here, just try and eliminate as many of the enemy's archers as I can. I mean, generally that's what you gotta do, you know, that's what you gotta do. Anyway, my forces are having some big problems. As I said before, it's just a matter of environment, you know. Many of the times where I have achieved victory against big odds, I have had a great battlefield, and I'm talking about a battlefield that is flat, especially with this army, that is. You know, I'm talking about a battlefield that's flat and has very little trees and mountains and so on and so forth, and it just makes everything so much easier for a force of horse archers. And I know I've said this time and time again, but environment really does make a big difference. And, you know, counterpoint, if you were to fight on a battlefield like this, that's actually a little bit more disadvantageous to you, you know, or your army or whatever it is, then you are really going to see the difference. You're really going to see a pretty massive difference, because here's the thing, I'm actually losing units right now. I'm losing units, and I know that, I mean, you technically should be losing units most of the time if your opponent is on the same sort of power level that you are. But obviously, because my forces at the moment, they're pretty high tier, I'm probably going to die here in just a second, so I'm going to try and eliminate a couple more forces while I still have the ability to do so. But yeah, anyway, these guys are obviously very much on our level, and they have pretty good amounts of high tier units. But I feel like we're still going to achieve victory, but that is literally just because the enemy doesn't... I mean, the enemy's also having a bit of a problem with the environment. But let's just think about this for a second, because if we were on a flat battlefield right now, I would wholeheartedly assume I would have very little casualties, or even zero casualties at the moment. And you can see here that I've lost over 50 units, which is almost unheard of at this point for me. With this army right now, I've been doing a whole bunch of fighting, you know, to the other vassals and everything. And I did a fight where I had, I think, 300 enemy units. Obviously, that's not the same as 600, because this guy has 600, or he had near to 600. And, yeah, anyway, point is, I barely lost any units before, because those battlefields, the environments that we were fighting in, were just so much more conducive to a horse archer based army. And I know that sounds really, really stupid for me to say that right now, because obviously, I mean, it's like a duh, you know, it's like a duh moment where you kind of think to yourself, well, yeah, of course environment's going to make a difference, but you also got to think about how the AI is going to react to it. For example, you take a look at this right here. Yeah. These guys are kind of just standing here. They're getting a bit stuck because of their pathfinding, and they're having a bit of a problem with it. Now, if I were to retreat right now and then go straight back in, I don't know whether I could even join the battle, because I'm dead, technically, right? I'm dead, so it's unlikely that I would be able to join, and as a result, I am inclined to stay in the battle for the next minute or so, because I'm very much hoping, I mean, you can see my arrow count as well, very much hoping that my forces will be able to... Oh, wait a minute. This arrow count is incorrect. Yeah, this arrow count is incorrect, because you can see here, bunch of forces firing away with their arrows, and we're not seeing the arrow count go down. So it seems to me like the arrow count is not working while I'm dead, which is, yeah, perfectly acceptable to think, because obviously you're not getting information relayed to you, because you're, well, my character at the very least is down, and he cannot hear anything. Oh well, never mind. I'm very much hoping that what we will be able to do is hopefully eliminate another 100 units or so. I'm going to speed things up real fast just to see what happens. I just want to eliminate another 100 units or so, and then I can probably retreat and then go in for an auto-resolve if I want to do that. Or we can just continue onward with this manual battle and probably achieve victory this way, but I'm not sure which is going to provide us with greater survival rates. So it seems to me like the manual battle seems to be going okay so far, so I think I'll probably just leave it the way it is. But yeah, this environment was so incredibly bad for us, and yet we were still able to achieve victory. So it feels to me... Oh, Turiados died! Okay, wow, I did not expect that. I thought to myself, no way, there's no way that anyone's going to be perishing on this battlefield, but that is crazy. Okay, that's really, really interesting. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to let all of these guys go, as is our process, I guess you could call it. And we're just going to be taking these prisoners, because I'm going to go back to Danustica. I need to try and restore myself a little bit. I'll sell my loot and all that wonderful stuff too. But yeah, actually, when I declared war against these fellows, I pretty much only wanted to... Yeah, that town was apparently Danustica, potentially. Yeah, anyway. I only wanted to take this particular town right over here, because obviously culture issues and all that stuff basically is conducive for us to try and, you know, take stuff like that. But yeah, I was a little bit unaware as to how large this particular faction's territory was, which is, I mean, it's actually not bad. You know, it's not a bad thing to do, you know, if you actually try to wage war against a faction that is relatively large, then you can of course take over that territory and make it your own if you want to. However, it kind of defeats the purpose of my initial intention, which obviously, if you think about what I, you know, said, you know, last episode, where I was basically saying, oh yeah, you know, our strategy should probably be to consolidate our forces, you know, consolidate our territory, make it so that we are all, well, kind of close to each other, right? But now look at this. Look at how terrible this is. It's basically going, you know, huge hop all the way over here, and it is so disjointed that I am kind of displeased about my about my choice. Oh, wait a minute. A clan wishes to join your kingdom? Whoa. Okay, wait a minute. This is due to allegiance overhaul, as far as I am aware, because I've never had this before. It could be a 1.7.1 thing, but I'm pretty sure it's allegiance overhaul. I think. I hope it is, at least, because that's really, really amazing. I love that. Anyway, the Griff's clan, yes, is looking to join your kingdom. They have 281 able warriors across 2 war parties and 1 fief that they won't be able to bring with them. Yep. Welcome them. Alright, I have no idea who these people are, all things considered. I really have no idea. The Griff's clan? Okay, well, that is hilarious. Okay, yeah. So he's under an oath of fealty for at least 84 days. Okay, and he has a war against the people that we're currently at war against. That's probably the reason why he wanted to join us. And he actually did bring a fief with him, as you can quite clearly tell. He did bring a fief with him, so that is actually amazing. I am really, really pleased with that. If we could get more of those kinds of events happening, that would be super nice. Super, super fun to see that, actually, because there have been many, many times where I have wanted that kind of game mechanic to return to Bannerlord. Because in the previous iteration of the game, and I'm talking about Warband here, not Fire and Sword, although I'm not really very experienced in regards to Fire and Sword, but anyway, point is, in Warband, when you would get, you know, a decent amount of land and maybe some relation and so on and so forth with some people, they might decide to join you, and as a result, they would be waiting in your Lord's Hall, and they would say and, you know, basically pledge themselves, and then you could choose. Yeah, then you could choose whether you accepted them or not. And obviously in Warband, it was a little bit more difficult to attain the information that is very easily at your fingertips in Bannerlord, because in Warband, it was a case of, well, do I remember if this guy has a good personality, for example? And you kind of have to decipher his personality type from what he says to you. Because sometimes these guys are going to have a real sort of like passive aggressive or even just, you know, straight up aggressive thing to say to you. And in those cases, yeah, you kind of got to be a bit, you know, a little bit, you know, a little bit difficult. You know, you gotta make sure that you know what you're doing in those situations. Because if you know, get a guy to join you that has a bad personality, it can be really, really harsh. And obviously, well, you really don't want to have some guy consistently hopping factions here and again. Anyway, I have a bunch of perks to spend: medicine, leadership, scouting, and 1 focus point. So let's see what we can do here. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess pristine streets, I guess. I mean, I don't think that the settlement prosperity is really going to help me, because I'm as I said, I don't think governor actually makes any difference to us at the moment. I don't think so, at least. But anyway, the 20% healing bonus in towns is definitely going to make a big difference, or at least I hope so. And are we clan tier 6 yet, by the way? Well, it doesn't really matter anyway. I'm going to take famous commander, increase renown gain from battles by 50%. How can you say no to that? And otherwise, I'm going to be increasing my athletics skill once again. I don't think there's anything else that I desperately need. I mean, yeah, charm skill is really good, but this is what it gives at its 275 perk. Not really worth it, in my opinion. I mean, I'm getting 5 influence per day, which, in my opinion, is pretty decent. I don't really think I need anything more. And of course, we are suffering a massive amount of decay thanks to me having too high influence. So yeah, anyway, we're going to go for another point in athletics, and then we're going to be going in for a siege at Mantola, as we do have another army on the horizon over there led by Hasawa, and she is actually attempting to take the castle over there. I'm very much hoping that she will be successful, because obviously we did defeat Turiados, and that has eliminated a rather large obstacle to our other forces. Because no doubt, and I'm not afraid to say this, no doubt my forces would probably succumb to his attack. I'm pretty sure he was very, very strong, and we were only able to defeat him just either through sheer luck or sheer power in the hands of our units, basically. Because these guys are really good. I do have a lot of high tier units as well. I don't know whether you've seen the army composition at the moment that I'm currently fielding, but it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of strong. It is kind of strong. And so that brings me to the next point. I'm not entirely sure how long the series will go on for at this point, but I have kind of seen, and we have kind of seen, I mean, obviously in my off-screen time, and obviously you've seen in the videos themselves, just how easily we are able to take fiefs, easily how we're able to defeat enemies, and so on and so forth. And we're consistently fighting against large forces, and I'm talking about Turiados' army as well, because Turiados, I think, probably had one of the I'm not entirely sure if I can say this, but maybe one of the largest, if not the largest army, or should we say the most high tier army that we have faced so far in this series. And I think generally, if we see something like that, where he has indeed a whole bunch of elite cataphracts and Manavliatons and so on and so forth, I am always thinking to myself, wow, okay, this guy had a pretty strong army, and yet we were able to win. And that kind of says to me, well, seems like we have power at our fingertips pretty much, and it's kind of difficult to not at this point. So yeah, I mean, I've said this time and time again as well, where personally I think that My Little Warband, while it is an absolutely amazing and super fantastical and such a wonderful mod itself, really love it. I mean, who can say that they don't love it, really? Because it allows you just to create any unit that you want for your own purposes. And generally, I do think that the mod does make things a little simpler, because obviously I can choose exactly what I want to use for my forces. I can make them very strong or not, but that's the thing. I've basically only done things in moderation. So, for example, my forces, they do have slightly higher stats in the noble troop tree, but only in moderation in regards to what they're currently using. Because, for example, if you take a look at the, I don't know, the Britannian Fian champions or something like that, if you take a look at those guys, they actually have, I think it is, what is it, do they have 270? I'm not sure. I think they have 270 in bows or something along those lines. And we have a relatively similar amount in our combat skill as well. And so if you think about that, and then you think about the fact that, well, I mean, my normal units have relatively similar values to the regular units as well. They have maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 or 20 points higher, just due to the fact that the standard units, the default units, don't min-max. They don't actually make it so that their stats are equally distributed most of the time, or if they are equally distributed, they are placed in other things, for example, things that they don't even end up using. So crossbowmen sometimes have points in archery or what have you, and it basically gives them no benefit whatsoever. So that's obviously the big upside of using a mod like My Little Warband, because you have utter 100% control over what you want your units to be using. And in my opinion, that's just super great. You know, that is just amazing. But on the other hand, it does make things a little bit more like this, where you're going to see these kinds of situations arise, especially considering you are able to recruit every single unit that you want from any village at all. I can go to any village, any town in the entirety of the world, and I can recruit my own units. Now, I personally love that. I personally think that that's an absolutely amazing feature of the mod, but it does make things much easier. Because in many cases, I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, like for example, if I don't use My Little Warband, I'm gonna think, oh, how do I get more of these units? How do I go here and get more of these? You know, it's that kind of situation, and that's the thing that you completely avoid with My Little Warband, because you can just recruit them from anywhere, which in my opinion is amazing. I think that's super, super cool. But again, it does make it simpler to recuperate your units. It makes it simpler to get a critical mass of units, and so on and so forth. But I don't know. I mean, you can't really say anything against My Little Warband, in my opinion, because apart from the fact that, yeah, you can choose, of course, you can choose to make your units weaker or what have you, but I mean, that's the point. You're trying to, I don't know. It's a bit difficult because you're trying to balance things, or at least I'm trying to balance things at the moment. I'm trying to balance things in such a way so that we have a fun time, but at the same time there's a challenge. It's difficult to do that in the situation that I'm in right now, because obviously I am trying to make it so that we actually have an interesting battle on our hands in many cases. You know, so for example, if we, we're going up against a faction that's pretty strong, then I'd like to have really intense, fun battles with them. But I don't want to get steamrolled myself, because obviously that's then going to result in me being defeated and losing all of my forces, and then I'm going to have to recruit all my units again, and that's not particularly exciting to see, in my opinion. Yeah, but apart from that, then obviously there's the other thing where we're stomping everyone, and obviously we don't want to stomp everyone either. So it's a bit of a, not a catch-22 situation, so to speak, but it is definitely one of those kinds of conundrums where I'm thinking, well, how do I make this work? So it may very well be the case that the series may finish soon-ish. I'm just wondering which faction can actually stand up against us right now, because you can see here, obviously we defeated Turiodos, he died in actual fact, and we have now taken 2 of the fiefs that the Hongueros faction had, and I could probably take these 2 as well without too many difficulties, all things considered. Now, what's actually going on over here? Is Ilatar doing okay? Yeah, he seems to be doing absolutely fine, and I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, they've taken Sargeth. Okay. Right. Okay, so I've actually given Griff's clan 2 fiefs, as you just saw right there. Now, I'm not sure whether that was a good idea, all things considered, because let's have a look here. He has 12 relation with me still. I'm a bit worried about this. Oh, okay. So I can donate influence to him, and I can gain influence. What? Okay, so I can gain relation with him by doing that. But now here's the thing. I just gave him 2 fiefs. Actually, yeah. You know what I should have done? Yeah, I should have taken the fiefs for myself, and then I should have donated them to him. That would have made the most sense, because then I would have gained more relation that way. But anyway, I'm just going to give him a bunch of influence, as I would like him to stick around. I don't really want him to defect or anything like that. He might do that. Not entirely sure. But yeah, so my initial thinking right now is a couple more episodes. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll go from there. So if we do have a situation where, you know, I mean, let me actually just take a quick look here, because yeah, these guys, they started off with 3,300 strength before we waged war against them, and now they have 900. So you can very quickly see how fast it can just spiral down into the drain, basically. And let me actually take a look. Who else has any strength? Well, this guy has, I mean, literally, he has 2 towns, 5 castles. This guy has only 1 clan in his entire faction. That's really not going to be very good. It's the same thing with Durthart as well. He's running around with 1 clan. This guy's looking pretty good. As you can see, he's got 4,400 combat strength. He has 3 clans in actual fact. Avlonos. Okay. And what else do we have going on here? This guy's got 2. Most people are pretty much down and out. This guy, yeah, it seems like the Empire is doing very well. Seems like the Empire, most of their factions are still up and running with a little bit of combat strength. There's the Neretz's clan. I should probably speak to Falentes, whoever is leading that. I should probably speak to whoever that is, and then try to persuade them to join us potentially. Let me see. This guy's doing okay. Botanian. This guy's doing really well. 4,000. Cervic. Yeah, I can kind of imagine that he would be good. You know, pretty good at leading a clan. This guy's doing the best. Amazingly enough, 4,900. That could literally just be because he has not had any wars of note waged against him. You know, he might have just been left alone, and in which case that makes sense. You know, his total strength makes sense in that regard. Anyway, let's take a look here. Who is it? Is it Tassanor? It's Tassanor, isn't it? Yes, it's Tassanor. Okay, I will send a messenger, but I highly doubt he is going to want to speak to me because he is probably in an army. Yeah. That's one of those things that I find kind of irritating, but wait, maybe he's not? No, I'm happy with my current liege. Well, I mean, we do have some relatively low relation with him, but we've got a lot of money. So maybe he just wants more. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, let's have a look here. 437. Okay. They've only got 1 day's worth of food remaining. I guess what we can do is probably just bombard the walls real fast. I mean, I say real fast, but they have 50,000 HP on the walls here, so it's really much a case of just getting the trebuchets up and running, I guess. Alright, so I took the castle and we are now in the management screen. So obviously this is one of those standard sieges where I just destroy the walls and then go straight in there, and it seemed to go pretty well. I was able to rescue a bunch of troops from the garrison and I have now placed them in there. So obviously that's going to be pretty nice for whoever takes this over. I have taken ownership of it myself, and we're probably going to be giving it to someone just now. So let's actually take a look at this. This is at Fenia Castle, right? Yeah, I think it is. So who do we want to give it to? Because we have a number of different people that we could give it to. I think Hasawa has actually been doing a really good job, so I'm going to be giving it to her, I think. And then she's going to be pretty happy with that. And then all that is left to be taken for the Hongaros clan is Vostrum, and we will be, well, I will probably be taking that off screen, and then we'll do, maybe one more episode, maybe two, I'm not entirely sure. It very much depends on if something really drastic happens, but as it stands right now, I'm not entirely sure if that will occur, but anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.